right, so this last composer is really a phenomenal composer who deserves much more to be heard. I've just played a few of his pieces, and they're all just so powerful. His name is Samuel Coleridge-Taylor. He was named after the very famous English poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge, he has an interesting birth story. He was born in 1875. His mother was a white woman living outside of London. His father was a doctor, a black doctor, who had come up from Sierra Leone to do some extra studying in London. They had gotten together, and then he went back to Africa and did not know that she was pregnant, as far as we know. And we don't really know whether they actually ever got him back together with his father. I don't think they did. But he ended up growing up with his mother and the mother's parents. And the mother's parents were both amateur musicians, and they stuck a violin into young Samuel when he was 4 years old, and he started playing the thing and got really good. And then they ended up sending him to the Royal Conservatoire, the Royal College of Music in London when he was about 9 or 10 years old, and he was kind of a star there. Charles Villiers Stanford, the most famous English composer at the time, took him under his wing and said, "I think you could start composing as well." And then when he started writing his first pieces, Edward Elgar, who was the most famous English composer at the time, heard it and really was the mentor to Samuel Coleridge-Taylor. And his first big hit was an oratorio called, a cantata maybe, called Song of Hiawatha, based upon the Song of Hiawatha by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. He was fascinated by that tale. He wrote 3 different cantatas about Hiawatha, and when he actually got married and had his first son, he named him Hiawatha, which is an odd name, but worked for him. He wrote this piece called The Song of Hiawatha, and it was a really popular piece in the first 20 years of the century, especially in England. Somebody did a study looking at which pieces were most performed at the time, which vocal pieces. The Messiah was number 1, and Hiawatha's Wedding Feast was number 2. So people knew this music. It just has not maintained itself in the repertoire, which is very sad, and has more to say about what the classical music world has done. He ends up teaching at the Crystal Palace School of Music, and then he hears the Fisk Jubilee singers who come to England in the late 1890s, and he's just blown away by these spirituals. And he begins to study a little bit more about his father. And I don't know if he made contact, but he realizes that his father was actually, the father's grandparents were actually slaves in the United States at the time of the American Revolution. And when the British came in, they actually freed a bunch of slaves and set up a colony in Nova Scotia for some of these freed slaves. But it's so cold in Nova Scotia that many of them sort of made their way back to Sierra Leone and sort of set up kind of a free state of past slaves there, and that's how Daniel Taylor had grown up without having that slave background. So there was something within Samuel that really hit him when he heard these spirituals, and so he instantly, for piano, wrote 24 arrangements of these spirituals, and then he took 5 of them and arranged them for piano trio in about 1906, we think. He was invited to come to the United States in 1905, actually, and conducted with the New York Philharmonic briefly, and toured all over, and in fact was the second person of African origin to be allowed in the front door of the White House. Booker T. Washington had gone in 1904, and Theodore Roosevelt really loved Hiawatha's Wedding Feast, and he was president, and he heard about Samuel Coleridge-Taylor coming, and he was invited to the White House to see Teddy Roosevelt. So again, a fairly well-known guy at the time. Part of the reason we don't know enough about him is he died when he's 35 years old of pneumonia, so he did not get to write that much music. On his tombstone is actually a quote from the Hiawatha. It says, "Too young to die, his great simplicity, his happy courage in an alien world, his gentleness made all that knew him love him." So I think you will love him after you hear this. A very powerful piece of music. 5 different movements, again, based upon spirituals. The first one is one of my favorite spirituals, "Sometimes I Feel Like a Motherless Child." Then we go down to I Was Way Down a Yonder. And then we get "Didn't My Lord Deliver Daniel? They Will Not Lend Me a Child." And the last one, "My Lord Delivered Daniel." So I get delivered twice along the way there, so it's great. But I think it's really a wonderful work. We hope you enjoy Samuel Coleridge-Taylor. And after that, we will set up for some little bites, and we have wine, we have non-alcoholic drinks for those who don't do that, and then after that we'll set up for you meet. you.